Before we begin, hit that subscribe button because what you're about to hear isn't just another crime story. It's the kind of case that makes you question everything: justice, truth, and the monsters who hide in plain sight. Let's dive in. The night of November 12th, 1989, was bitterly cold in Portland, Oregon. A thick fog rolled in from the river, swallowing the city lights. At 2:14 a.m., a jogger on his way home from a late shift stumbled upon something that would haunt the city for decades: a woman's body beneath the Burnside Bridge. Her face was bruised, her hands bound with frayed electrical cords, and a single earring, a small silver star, dangled from her left ear. Police arrived within minutes. Detectives marked the scene with flashes of blue and red, but something about it felt off. The woman wasn't homeless, as they first assumed. Her clothes were clean, her nails manicured, and she wore a delicate gold bracelet engraved with the initials CB. There was no ID, no purse, no phone. Detective Raymond Holt, a man known for his calm under pressure, took one long look at the scene and muttered, "This isn't random. Someone staged this." The autopsy revealed signs of a struggle and a sedative in her bloodstream, a drug not easily found on the streets. Forensics, though limited in the late 80s, picked up traces of motor oil and sawdust under her fingernails. It was strange, specific, and pointed to a location rather than a person. By morning, the city's front pages screamed, "Mystery woman found beneath bridge." Police baffled. For weeks, detectives worked leads. They traced the bracelet to a local jewelry shop. The inscription, CB, was their only clue, but no one came forward. Missing persons databases yielded nothing. She was a ghost. Until 3 months later, a retired dock worker named Samuel Crane called the police after seeing a sketch on TV. "I think I knew her," he said, his voice trembling. "She used to come by the shipyards." Said her name was Catherine Blackburn. Catherine. The name matched the initials. According to old employment records, she had worked as a secretary at a lumber distribution company on the riverfront, a company that mysteriously shut down that same winter. Her boss? A well-known Portland businessman named Douglas Merritt, a family man, philanthropist, and friend to half the city council. Detective Holt and his partner, Jane Rourke, visited Merritt's home. He welcomed them in, calm and collected, offering coffee as if they were old friends. He claimed Catherine was a temporary hire and that she'd quit, unexpectedly, a week before her disappearance. But something didn't sit right. When Holt mentioned the autopsy findings, the traces of sawdust and motor oil, Merritt's smile faltered, just for a moment. The detectives pressed harder, searching the now-abandoned lumber site. It was dark, empty, and thick with dust. Near the back of the property, behind a collapsed storage shed, Rourke spotted something glinting beneath a layer of dirt: a woman's shoe, half buried. And just beside it, a small patch of concrete that didn't match the rest of the floor. They called in a forensics team. After hours of cutting through the slab, they unearthed a metal lockbox sealed tight with rust. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, of Catherine Blackburn. Some smiling at her desk, others terrified, bound and gagged. And one more thing, a set of Polaroids showing her inside Merritt's office, time-stamped only days before her death. When the detectives confronted him, Merritt didn't flinch. "You can't prove anything," he said quietly. "You have pictures but no evidence. I've built this city. You think anyone will believe you?" The case stalled. The evidence chain was weak, and Merritt's lawyers shredded every hole in the timeline. Catherine's murder went unsolved, and the file was quietly closed in 1991. Years passed. Holt retired, Rourke transferred, and Merritt continued his life untouched. The photos disappeared into an evidence locker. Catherine's grave, unmarked, unnamed, was forgotten by nearly everyone, until 34 years later. In the summer of 2025, a young forensic analyst named Emily Rourke, Jane's daughter, was digitizing old evidence archives for the Portland PD. She found the box labeled C, Blackburn closed. Inside, she noticed something strange the old investigators couldn't have known back then: a partial fingerprint preserved on one of the Polaroids. The print didn't belong to Catherine. It didn't belong to Merritt either. It matched someone who shouldn't even have been alive in 1989, a name tied to a recent homicide in Seattle. Emily froze. How could a fingerprint from 2025 show up on evidence from 1989? She pulled the file again, compared dates, locations, and prints. The match was 100% verified. She called her supervisor, but before she could explain, her computer screen flickered, then went black. Her access to the database had been revoked. Emily sat in the dark office, staring at the empty monitor. Somewhere in that silence, she realized the truth. Someone didn't want Catherine's case reopened. She reached into the evidence box one last time and found something taped under the lid. An old cassette recorder, labeled in faded ink. "Play me." When she pressed play, the voice that echoed through the speakers wasn't Merritt's. It was her mother's. And she was saying, "If you're hearing this, it means they found me too. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear isn't just a continuation, it's a descent into a cover-up that goes deeper than anyone imagined." Emily Rourke sat frozen in the evidence room, the cassette still spinning inside the old recorder. Her mother's voice, steady but tense, filled the silence. "Emily, if this tape ever reaches you, don't trust anyone in the department. Catherine Blackburn's case, it was never meant to be solved. They buried the truth. And if you dig deep enough, they'll come for you too." Emily's hands trembled as she stopped the tape. Her mother, Detective Jane Rourke, had died in a car accident in 1992. At least, that's what she'd always been told. The official report said, loss of control due to heavy rain. But now, that story felt like another lie in a long line of them. She needed answers. Emily accessed the backup server through a restricted archive her supervisor didn't know she had. There she found the 1989 case logs, scan notes, autopsy reports, and the original Polaroids. One entry caught her eye: subject Merritt's personal assistant, witness interview, terminated early. Notes missing. The assistant's name was Margaret Lane. No address. No follow-up. A deep unease crept over her. It was as if every lead had been deliberately cut short. Every potential witness erased. That night, Emily drove out to the last known location of Douglas Merritt's lumber site, now fenced off and abandoned for decades. The air was damp and heavy. Her flashlight cut through the dust like a blade. Somewhere near the back of the yard, she found the old office building, windows shattered, walls stripped bare. She pushed open the door. Inside, the smell of oil and decay lingered. Papers littered the floor. Old invoices, work orders, faded photographs of workers smiling beside heavy machinery. Then, behind the receptionist's desk, she spotted something scratched into the wall, a single word carved deep into the paint. "Run." Her pulse spiked. Emily turned to leave, but before she could step outside, her flashlight flickered again. She wasn't alone. A silhouette moved behind the shattered window. A man, tall, wearing a dark coat, standing perfectly still. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and tapped on the glass twice. Emily bolted for her car. The figure didn't chase her, but when she looked back from the driver's seat, she saw the glint of a camera in his hand, like he was recording her. The next morning, Emily went straight to her old mentor, Lieutenant Avery Monroe, one of the few remaining detectives who had worked alongside her mother. Avery was in his late 60s now, his face carved with the lines of too many secrets. When she told him about the tape, his expression hardened. "Jane was smart," he said quietly. "Too smart." She was getting close to something about Merritt, but it wasn't just him. There were other names. Powerful ones. The kind that could make evidence disappear overnight. He opened his desk drawer and slid over a yellowed file folder marked confidential. Inside were photographs taken in 1990, months after Catherine Blackburn's death. They showed Merritt at a private estate dinner surrounded by uniformed officers, local judges, and businessmen. It wasn't just a murder, it was a network of people tied together by something darker. Emily stared at the final photo, her mother in the background, half hidden behind a column, taking notes. "Your mother didn't die in a car accident," Avery whispered. "She was on her way to meet a federal contact the night she crashed. The case files she carried were never found." Emily felt her throat tighten. Then where are they now? Avery hesitated. That's what scares me. Someone made sure those files stayed buried. And if you're seeing ghosts from that case, it means whoever protected Merritt is still watching. Later that evening, Emily drove home and spread everything she had on her kitchen table. Old Polaroids, her mother's tape, the hidden files, and a copy of Merritt's death certificate. He'd supposedly died of a heart attack in 2004, but something about the document was off. The attending physician's name was smudged. She dug deeper. The state medical database listed no record of his burial, no coroner's signature, and no next of kin to claim the body. Douglas Merritt hadn't just escaped justice. He might never have died at all. That night, Emily's phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice came through, low and calm. "You're looking in the wrong place, Emily," the voice said. "Your mother found the truth, but she didn't tell you everything. The real evidence isn't in the files. It's under the bridge." The call cut off. Her heart pounded. The bridge, the same one where Catherine Blackburn's body had been found decades earlier. Emily grabbed her keys, her recorder, and a flashlight and sped through the empty streets of Portland. The river shimmered with the reflection of cold city lights. She parked beneath the bridge and stepped out, her breath visible in the icy air. The place felt different now, heavier, as if it remembered what had happened there. She searched the old support columns, tracing the ground with her flashlight. Then, just beneath one of the concrete pillars, she noticed something, a metal grate welded into the ground, faintly marked with the initials CB. Her pulse quickened. She knelt, scraping away the dirt around the edges. The grate was old, but not ancient. Someone had sealed it recently. Using a wrench from her trunk, she forced it open. Inside was a narrow shaft, just wide enough to crawl through. The air smelled of rust and stagnant water. She lowered herself in, her flashlight shaking slightly. At the bottom, a small, waterproof chest sat half-submerged. She wiped it clean and pried it open. Inside were three things: a torn photo of Catherine and her mother standing together, a bundle of cassette tapes labeled 1989 to 1990, and a single sheet of paper with one handwritten line. It wasn't Merritt. It was someone higher. Emily barely had time to process it before she heard the sound, footsteps echoing above her. Someone was there. Then, the grate slammed shut. Darkness swallowed everything. If you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button because what happens next isn't for the faint of heart. What started as a murder investigation is about to become something far more dangerous. The sound of metal clanging above her echoed through the hollow space. Emily froze, her breath quick and shallow. The faint beam of her flashlight quivered as she aimed it upward. Dust drifted down through the grate. Whoever had sealed her inside was still up there. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to think. She couldn't panic. Not now. Not when she was so close. She turned her attention back to the chest in front of her, the bundle of cassette tapes half-soaked in the cold, stagnant water. She grabbed them all, shoving them into her backpack. Then, she noticed a small red light on the wall, a motion sensor. Someone had been monitoring this place. Emily moved quickly, climbing up the shaft's slippery ladder. She pushed against the grate, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked tight. She slammed her hands against it, shouting, "Who's there?" No answer. Then, faintly, she heard the crunch of boots walking away, growing fainter until the silence was unbearable. She waited 30 seconds, a minute, 5, then took out her wrench again. Using every ounce of strength, she forced the edge loose. The metal shrieked. Finally, the grate gave way. She pulled herself out, gasping in the open air. The river glistened nearby, moonlight slicing through the fog. But something was off. Her car was gone. Emily scanned the empty lot, adrenaline cutting through her fear. Whoever locked her down there had also taken her only way out. She ran toward the main road, her boots splashing through puddles. In the distance, she spotted headlights, an old sedan parked beneath a streetlight. Inside sat Lieutenant Avery Monroe. He stepped out as she approached, hands raised in calm surrender. "You're okay," he said softly. "I tracked your phone when you didn't answer. I told you, this case isn't what it looks like." She stared at him, breathless. "Someone trapped me down there. They knew I'd find the tapes." "I know," he said grimly. "And that's exactly what they wanted." He led her into the car, locking the doors behind them. Emily's skin prickled. Something about his tone had changed, colder, distant. She watched his hands on the wheel. They weren't steady. "Avery," she said slowly, "why are you shaking?" He didn't answer. He just drove. The city lights blurred past as they crossed into the outskirts of Portland. Then, finally, he spoke. "You think your mother was investigating Merritt. But Merritt was only a name, a puppet. There was someone behind him. Someone who made sure Catherine Blackburn was silenced." Emily gripped the tapes tighter. "Who?" Avery exhaled. "A federal contractor. Code name, Northlake. They used the lumber company to transport chemical materials. Catherine found out. She tried to expose it. Merritt was ordered to make it disappear, but he panicked. He called your mother for help, and that was the end of both of them." Emily's throat tightened. "You knew this the whole time?" Avery's jaw clenched. "I tried to warn Jane. But by the time I did, they already had her. I've been keeping the secret for 30 years, and now you've reopened the wound." He turned toward her, eyes glassy, desperate. "They're watching us right now. You don't understand how deep this goes." Emily glanced at the dashboard. The red light on his radio wasn't for dispatch. It was recording. She realized then, Avery wasn't trying to protect her. He was stalling. "You're working for them," she whispered. He didn't deny it. The car veered suddenly down a narrow dirt road toward the river. "I told them I could contain this," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "That you wouldn't dig. That you'd let your mother rest." Emily reached into her coat pocket, gripping her recorder, still running since she'd entered the tunnel. Every word he said was being captured. The car skidded to a stop at the edge of the water. Avery shut off the engine. The night was silent again, save for the hum of insects and the distant rush of a current. He turned toward her. "Give me the tapes, Emily. I'll make sure they're destroyed properly. No one needs to get hurt." She shook her head slowly. "That's what you told my mother, isn't it?" His face hardened. For a moment, she saw the guilt flash in his eyes. Then he reached for his gun. Emily lunged first, slamming the door open and bolting into the woods. Avery's voice echoed behind her. "You can't hide from them. They already know your name." Branches tore at her clothes as she ran. She didn't stop until she reached the old train tracks that curved along the river. There, she collapsed, catching her breath, clutching the tapes like they were the last pieces of truth left in the world. Her phone was gone, taken. She had no car, no backup. But she still had one thing, the recording. She listened to it, the faint hiss of Avery's voice whispering, "They'll come for you too." By morning, she walked into a local news station, exhausted, bruised, trembling, and handed the reporter the tapes and the recording. Within days, the story hit the airwaves. It spread fast. Portland's forgotten murder. New evidence links 1989 case to federal cover-up. The tapes revealed more than anyone expected. Catherine Blackburn had recorded secret meetings at Merritt's office, including conversations with unnamed officials discussing removal of evidence and containment protocols. It wasn't just one murder. It was a cover-up of illegal shipments, a black-budget operation hidden behind the mask of a local business. The FBI reopened the case within a week. Arrests were made. Files long thought destroyed resurfaced. Douglas Merritt's death certificate was proven forged. He had been living under a false identity in Europe until just months earlier, and when the Bureau tracked him down, he was already dead. Poison. The official statement called it suicide. But Emily knew better. In the chaos that followed, the department where her mother once worked was purged, and the story dominated national headlines. But for Emily, there was no victory, only silence. She visited her mother's unmarked grave, now bearing a simple inscription, Detective Jane Rourke. She never stopped searching. As she placed the final tape beneath the headstone, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You think it's over?" It read. "Check your mother's recorder, side B." Emily stared at the cassette she'd carried for days. She flipped it over. On the back, etched faintly into the plastic, were the initials, CB. She pressed play. A woman's voice came through, calm, chillingly familiar. "Hello, Emily," it said. "I never died. And neither did he." The recording ended. She looked up at the quiet cemetery, the sun setting behind the trees, and whispered, "Catherine." The wind shifted. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. They thought the killer was gone. But some ghosts never stay buried. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe because the next case goes even deeper.